In this video, we're going to talk about how to start a farm from scratch from anywhere, right? According to the USDA, a farm is any place that could or normally would produce $1,000 worth of agricultural products in a given year. That is the definition of a farm. Now, a farm is a business, and businesses are set up so that they make a profit. They're supposed to make a profit. However, when you look at the most recent agricultural census, you're going to find that a lot of farmers make very little to no profit. And when I first got into farming, I really was perplexed by that. I'm like, how can you have 100 acres and 50 acres and 20 acres and not be making no money? Well, because the way farming is set up now, it is industrialized, right? And so people are being, incentivized with the government subsidies to grow one thing, soybeans, to raise one thing, cows, to do this non-diverse approach to farming. Whereas when you look at farming the way Booker T. Whatley looked at farming, the small farmer especially needs a diverse offering. They need more than one cash crop, particularly 10. So I don't care where you are. If you're in a one-bedroom apartment or if you have 100 acres, you can start a farm by figuring out what are those 10 things that you can cultivate or grow in order to be able to serve the needs of your local market. Because that's the other piece of it. If you don't meet the needs of the market, it's not going to matter. Nobody's going to buy your produce. Now, if you're not in the business of farming to make money and you're in the business of growing or raising food for your family, that's going to lean more towards a homestead. Homesteads sometimes supplement their income with selling their bumper crop. But for the most part, a lot of people have asked me, what is a homestead? There is no one true definition, and by no means am I the authority on giving the definition. However, a homestead is self-sufficiency in a nutshell. When you hear the term homestead as it relates to someone, establishing a homestead, what you're talking about is someone who wants to be self-sufficient, preferably at the one end of the scale, off grid. Not on the city sewer, not on the city water, not on the city electrical grid, right? And then somewhere in between, there are bunches of us who are kind of just inching along the way trying to get there, right? We're not in any way near being off grid, but we're trying to live a more self-sufficient lifestyle. So when it comes to farming, which is what this video is about, starting one is all about thinking like a business owner. And so you have to consider, who are your customers? So location is important, because one of the things that you need to recognize is when you start growing and raising stuff, you got to either get it to the customer or the customer is going to have to come to you and get it. And the best way to approach this is to establish something where if you can bring the customers to you, that's going to save you a lot of travel costs, a lot of packaging costs, and a lot of setting up and waiting costs. Anybody who sold at the farmers markets know when you got to get up and go to the farmers market and sit and hope and wait that they've done a good job in marketing their open hours so that people will come. It's just like a Hail Mary. It's not going to necessarily be something that's going to result in you selling out every time. The other thing is that when you have an apartment and you don't have a place where people can come, then you're going to have to use the digital space in order to be able to set up, a place where you can take orders and then maybe possibly deliver them. So it just depends on where you're located. Now, one of the things people overlook a lot is, what are you going to name your farm? Because your farm name is so very important in your marketing message and the connectivity that you're going to have with your customer base. Because again, a farm is a business, and businesses need customers, and they're not going to be your customers unless they know, like, and trust you, right? Unless they can connect with you and your story as to why you're even doing this, right? Personally, I started my farm with Music City Fungi as the name. I wanted to do alkaline vegan, grow oyster mushrooms. They were the best meat replacement, so I was all about mushrooms. Well, guess what? That was too niche, and that really didn't tell my true story. So I pivoted, and that's another thing. Don't be afraid to change your name, right? I pivoted from Music City Fungi to Out the Mud Farm. Out the Mud Farm is more indicative of who I am. I get it out the mud. All right? I do hard things. I buy a house a day after I was supposed to be foreclosed with bad credit and, you know what I'm saying, very little income. I start a real estate brokerage with little to no money, and here I am almost, 11 years later, right? So it's like, doing difficult things is it's like I thrive in it. I think that's a trauma response, but y'all pray for me, okay? But the bottom line is, Out the Mud Farm tells that story, right? So when you have a farm name that tells the story that is indicative of who you are, you're going to be a lot better off when it comes to your marketing of whatever it is that you're selling. So let's talk about that. Let's walk to the back because I want to show y'all that living in an apartment, that you don't have to have this big extravagant situation set up in order to be able to start your farm. I want to show you how to start a farm, even if you are in a 1-bedroom apartment, because the setup that I have here is going to be for something that if you got an extra bedroom, you can use, right? You can use this setup that I have as your setup, and it's for microgreens. Now, here's the thing. Again, you have to sell what people want to buy, so you're going to have to figure that out. And when it came to microgreens, when I started growing them, one of the things that I realized is that people really don't know what they are, right? So you have to be in a situation, in a place where people know what they are. You know, even though you're in an apartment, you got to look at crops that will work in an apartment, and microgreens will work. You still may have to do a little bit of education in order to be able to get the customers to know that there's something that they need to buy, right? Let me switch hands. Got coffee in one hand. But yeah, so we're going here into this building. We call it our back apartment. And it was at one point licensed as a greenhouse. I paid the State Department of Agriculture to come out and look at it. And I was gonna be growing microgreens. Ooh. Oh, it's locked. So let me go to the other door. I was gonna be growing microgreens out of here for the masses, until I realized that in my part of the woods, you know, microgreens really isn't a big thing. But if you are in an apartment and you're trying to start a farm, go find those juicing places, those health food places. They're gonna know what microgreens are. And I'm sure if you're living in an apartment, you're in a city that has them. All right, so we're in. All right, let's go check things out. Now, a business is going to require an investment of capital. You're not going to get away with, you know, starting a business with no money. I've started several, and all of them have required some form of either cash and or time that I have to put in it. All right, so no lights. So here's the setup. I've got 2 shelves. These are, look at the racks. 1, 2, 3, 4 racks each. I actually could probably put something on top, but not really. You're gonna need these trays, and these are trays that have, one of them has holes, one of them does not. Okay, I can't remember how much I spent for all of this, but it was less than, I would probably say less than, oh my goodness, I can't remember how much it was. I want to say it was less than $1,000, all right? I can't remember exactly how much it was. I may do another video on that, but let me get some light going on in here real quick. Hold on just a second. All right, let's put some lights on so you can see a little bit more. All right, so with your microgreens, you're gonna come in here and you're gonna plant them. You're gonna cover them up with something heavy so that it forces the seed to germinate. And this is all the setup you need. You need lights, and this one's not plugged in, so that one's not on right there. But you need lights, you need a shelving system, and you don't even need this, you know, big serious shelving system that I purchased. I thought I was gonna go big, remember? But you can use just any shelves that will let you get 3 or 4 of these trays, okay, on a row, right? And there's so many videos and people that are out there growing microgreens. You can go, you know, down that rabbit hole and see how much they're making. But starting a farm is starting with a crop that you can do from where you are. If you can't do microgreens and you want to do something like soap, then you're gonna need a crock pot, and you're gonna need a mold. Okay, there you go. And you're gonna need a soap cutter, which I gotta go over to the other side to get. These are little bitty things that you can get, right? This doesn't require a whole lot of input. Here we go. Right? These are the things that you can do if you don't have 50 acres acres. You don't have to have a whole bunch of acres and all this to start no farm. You just have to be willing and able to understand that a farm is any place that could or normally would produce $1,000 worth of agricultural products in a given year. So let's go back over to the microgreens. All this stuff so far is in this back apartment. This is not on my 5 acres, right? This has nothing to do with, row cropping or anything like that. All you need, there's my chickens, I'll say hey. All you need to do is to find something that you can do from where you are. So let's talk about those folks who do have the land and who do want to be able to farm in a more traditional sense, right? I need to find these microgreens real quick, so hold tight. There they are. Because I'm going to start growing these for the chickens' feed. And doesn't feel like they're in there. What did I do with them? That's the thing about having this place as storage is that, oh, I know what I did with them. Let's go back in here. Is that there's so much stuff in here that I need to really go through and figure out what I got. God has been telling me to inventory. I've been ignoring them. I need to stop. You know what happens when you ignore them. Okay, so here are my microgreens. Okay, I got them in here. So what I'm gonna start doing, and these are old, so I don't know how much I'll get as far as germination, but these are sunflower microgreens. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start growing these for the chickens for feed. As you can see here, I have plenty of trays. These are just 9 by 12 tables, right? Not to say that you can take up your whole apartment. I wouldn't say that, but do whatever you can do, right? When you want to start a farm, you have to do whatever you can do, keeping in mind your customer 100% of the time. And what is this? These are peas. Let's see what these look like. I'm gonna show you guys. But the other thing is setting up your back office. Let's talk administratively real quick. Oopsies, I'm making a mess. There are some of the pea microgreens. So I'll do another video with me putting these together and putting these trays together so you guys can see it. Because again, I've got plenty of protein back here for my chickens. And I got a lot of these from True Leaf Market when I was gonna start my microgreen business. And these seeds are old, so we'll see how they do. I'll have to do probably a little bit more on the way of encouraging them to germinate. And so we'll see what happens. But True Leaf Market is a great place to look for your microgreens. What was I gonna say next? Traditional people who have the land and the acreage, you still have to think in terms of what does your customer need. It doesn't mean that you have to start out there on the land. Maybe you do start with, maybe you got goats and you're doing goat's milk. Maybe you do come in the kitchen with that and do some goat's milk soap, right? Maybe you do some agritourism to get started, to get some money coming in, reaching out to the local school systems and having a situation where the kids can come $25 a pop and on a field trip to your farm if you've got enough for them to be able to see. You really have to think outside of the box when it comes to farming. But administrative, I think that's where I was going next. You have to set it up like a business. I recommend a sole proprietorship to start. Then once the business takes off and starts making money and can afford to pay for the LLC, then get the LLC. Then after that, I recommend that you get your EIN. Your EIN is going to be that identifier with the IRS so that you, when you file your taxes at the end of the year and you file your Schedule F. Schedule F is what you file when you are engaging in farming activities. Then your EIN will be something that you use on your Schedule F. The other thing that I recommend that you do is to set up some kind of a basic accounting system, maybe a spreadsheet that you can start keeping up with all of your expenses, all of this stuff that I spent. You know what I'm saying? I really didn't do a great job at the beginning of keeping up with it because I was just so excited. The money I spent on what is that thing, a kennel, and I don't know how many tarps, thank goodness for Tractor Supply, the receipts, the credit card receipts, I can just kind of go back and look. And that's another thing, when you do shop at one place, keeping up with your farm expenses is very easy, especially if you get like a credit card to Home Depot or Tractor Supply or something like that. But yeah, so the next thing in starting a farm is just to figure out where your customers are and capturing your journey. You need to document everything on social media so people can begin to know, like, and trust you. You need a way for them to be able to plug in and give you their name and email. So you need a farm newsletter. And that's how you get started. But you got to make sure that your name is in line with who you are. You got to make sure that you understand that you can start it from anywhere, a kitchen or 500 acres. You got to make sure that whatever you have, that it's focused on serving the people who need, what they say they need. Don't grow purple sweet potatoes because you think they're cool. Only grow purple sweet potatoes if that's what the people want. And then the big piece is don't go to them, make them come to you. Even if you're in an apartment, figure it out to where you can either deliver the stuff online, or if you've got a lot of land, figure out a you-pick situation, do all your research and see if that's something you can do. All right, I hope this video helps. I'll see y'all on the next one. I got to start some microgreens. Peace.